Hi, I'm Jillian and welcome to the show. I offer spiritual growth for the rebel soul, guiding you through the labyrinth of your own ascension path. This show is for the rebel souls that challenge the status quo, those that crave authenticity in every single aspect of their lives, that desire to embrace their uniqueness, follow their passions, connect to their soul and live according to who they truly are, even if that means having the courage to go against the grain or the norms of society. If that's you, my spiritual soul seeker, rebel warrior, then this is the place for you. On this podcast, we speak about everything from spirituality, sexuality, conscious relationships, business, and literally everything in between. So if that's your jam, then stay tuned. And go on, be a rebel and subscribe. You know you want to. Let's talk about judgment and gossip. Not from my moral high horse, but from an energetic and spiritual lens. Because you know what? Judgment and gossip are never ever about the other person. They're really reflections and they're projections. And they're just clues pointing you inward to something that wants to be seen, something that wants to be healed, or just reclaimed inside your own self. Because judgment is actually unprocessed pain that's just wearing this mask of judgment, right? And it can show up as superiority, or it can show up as disgust, or I'm just being honest. But this is all bullshit, honestly. It's all bullshit. It's actually the part of you that's been shamed or rejected or taught to disconnect from your own truth. Because when we judge, we often judge what we're afraid of within ourselves, right? We criticize what we secretly wish we could express, and then we reject in other people what we actually haven't fully loved in our own selves. So judgment is really some sort of energetic flare pointing completely in towards your own self, right? It's pointing towards the unmet need, that unintegrated wound, that disowned shadow aspect of your own self, right? And then we have, judgment's best friend. We have gossip. Now, gossip is an energy leakage, right? Like you're just leaking energy, and it's kind of almost like masquerading as some sort of connection, right? Because what I've noticed is that the people that tend to gossip is when they're actually craving intimacy, but don't actually know how to get it directly, right? So instead, we bond over someone else's life, someone else's pain, or, maybe their perceived mistakes. But from an energetic standpoint, gossip creates cords, right? It ties your energy to theirs, again, unconsciously, right? But it keeps you looped in these lower frequency dynamics of things like comparison or resentment. And it is, again, from a spiritual and energetic perspective, you are bound, you are corded, you are staying in low vibration energies, and that is going to make it really difficult for you to shift or evolve or to move forward, because you're not really looking at the key thing of why you're gossiping and why you're judging, which is to take a look at the mirror that it's presenting to you, to look inside yourself, right? And this actually come up very recently with me, with someone that I saw recently, and they actually brought up some kind of celebrity relationship that was apparently blowing up on TikTok. And they said, some kind of unsolicited commentary like, oh, he's using her for the fame or the clout or something like that. And the second those words came out of their mouth, I felt my energy pull back instantly. My whole system just said no. It was screaming, fuck no. And not from a judgment of them, but just from a deeper knowing that this energy of judgment, of gossip, just didn't resonate with who I am at all. It was just in complete misalignment. So I kind of reflected back, and I said to them, I said, it's really interesting how invested we get in stories about people we don't actually know, right? I wonder, what this dynamic is maybe bringing up for people collectively, maybe around their worth, their relationships, maybe even around power dynamics. And I kind of just offered a mirror to what maybe coming up for them at a deeper level. Because, here's something that I've come to know, especially after experiencing judgment and trolling with my own online presence, is this, right? When someone is judging you without any context, gossiping about your life, then they're really just revealing, honestly, how harshly they judge themselves, And that same energy has showed up in my own reality, because I've been in seasons of healing my own internal self-judgments, my visibility wounds, the fear of being misunderstood, the pressure to be too perfect to avoid any kind of critique or judgment. I've experienced all of that in the past too. And, the universe, of course, like it does, mirrored that energy back to me. But not like in a way to punish me, but to really give me that clarity and the agency in how I choose to meet it. Because it was all just pointing back to wounds that I still needed to heal. And I could see that was playing out in my friend too, right? Because again, judgments and gossip, they're just mirrors. Like, they're not the truth. They're just mirrors, right? They don't reveal actual facts. They're just showing you where you still need to heal. They're not about the person that's being judged either, right? They're actually about the person that's doing the judging, and they reflect where, we've either rejected parts of our own selves, like say you find yourself judging someone for being too much or too loud or attention seeking, this is a big shadow part, right? Because deep down, what's happened is you were probably shamed for expressing yourself or taking up space when you were a kid. And I know, because I had that one. Like, I had that one personally, Things like people being too loud or being, too rude, like really kind of triggered me at some points in my past. And then I was able to go into those shadow parts of myself that I kept hidden, because somewhere along the line, I learned that it wasn't acceptable, or I wouldn't be loved, or it wasn't safe to be too much or too loud or too expressive or too myself. And maybe you can relate to that one too, right? That part of you that wanted to shine, again, this is generally can be a lot of inner child stuff, but it can also be a lot of past life and ancestral stuff, right? That part of you that wanted to shine or wanted to express or wanted to speak your truth was told in some way that it was unsafe to do that, right? So now you've put that part of you in your shadow, right? And you're probably the good girl or, the good boy, and you've created this persona, right? But it now gets triggered when other people seem like they're too loud or seem like, they're fully in their expression. You probably get triggered by that, right? It can also show up where you've lost your own connection to some kind of level of compassion or just like nuance in general, right? Because say you gossip about, I don't know, a friend's messy breakup, calling it toxic or dramatic, but then you're actually avoiding feeling your own grief or your own disappointment about your own relationship that ended badly or, or it didn't go how you hoped in the past. You see, it's a lot easier to label someone else's mess than to actually sit with your own, to sit with your own heartbreak, because a lot of people don't want to feel their own shit, right? And I know if you've been listening to this, then you are at a place where you're ready for things to change. And you're not afraid to go into those deeper depths of the realms of your own self for healing, right? Because this is what it's about. And this judgment and this gossip, right, if it comes up again in your life, it can also represent, again, some level of internalized shame or perfectionism. That's another really key one. Say you judge someone online for, I don't know, how they parent or how they run their business or how they show up spiritually. But it's really the part of you that feels like you can never do enough. You can never be enough, or you just can't get it right? And their freedom triggers the shit out of your own internal critic, right? Who's been there? Who's been there? It can also show you where you've forgotten who the fuck you are. And when I say that, I mean your own divinity and also theirs, right? Because say you criticize someone's appearance, their life choices, their beliefs, but in that moment, you've slipped out of your soul and into separation. And this is a big collective wound that we are healing as humanity, is forgetting that we are God, right? We are the divine. But so many people feel completely lost and separated from that love, and you've forgotten that this person that you're judging, they're on their own journey, just like you are, right? This sacred journey of being, and it's messy and it's complex and it's human, but it is divine too, right? And again, somewhere along the lines, you've forgotten that. You've forgotten that you are part of this bigger tapestry, and so are they. Look at, the recent backlash against Aubrey Marcus, right? He came forward publicly on his podcast and shared that his marriage has actually expanded to include a third person, right? And suddenly, oh my God, people from the spiritual community, the ones who preach unconditional love and freedom and soul sovereignty, have just turned against him in like waves of judgment, of shame, and just online dogpiling, honestly. And it's not that you have to agree with his choices. You really don't have to agree with his choices. You can hold just completely different values, different beliefs, different boundaries. That is so valid. That's spiritual maturity, right? But what I find so fascinating and revealing, in fact, is how violently people have reacted just because his truth doesn't actually match theirs. And from what I've seen, it's kind of become like a bit of a modern day online witch hunt, it's wild. And what that shows me is when someone's path threatens your own unconscious beliefs about love or safety or control, then your ego is going to fight for certainty by going into judgment or by going into gossip, right? But that's not the soul. That's not truth, right? That really is, quite honestly, an invitation for you to look deeper. Because, the real work of spiritual awakening and evolving isn't about everyone agreeing. In fact, that's probably going to be boring as hell if that was the case. It's really about learning to hold other people in love even when you don't agree, right? That's what it's about. And I want you to listen to that again, right? It's about holding other people in love, even when you don't agree with them. Because again, gossip and judgment, they're not inherently, say, bad, right? They're just clues. They're just showing you where your energy is tangled. They're showing you where your heart is still guarded. They're showing you where, you've got old stories still running the show. And, that actually makes them really powerful tools for spiritual healing. Of course, only if you're willing to actually look in that mirror, that is. But they're invitations, right? All of this stuff, all of these shadow aspects, right? These lower vibration, energies of, emotions or beliefs or whatever it is, projections. They're just invitations for your own growth, right? Because when you are unconsciously judging others, you're just judging yourself, right? Again, I use the term the mirror all the time because I can't, there's no better way to describe, everything is a self-reflection, right? Not everything, but when it comes to judgment and gossip, right? Absolutely. Because, when you gossip about someone else's choices, then there's likely, a part of you that doesn't feel safe in making your own choices, right? Or doesn't feel that you can make those choices. Or, there's deeper layers here, right? So we all have shadows, right? And if you have noticed that you've had some kind of level of judgment or some kind of gossip or something else that's come up that you want to shift out of, maybe it's some kind of shame-based projection, or you've been the on the receiving end of this yourself, right? And there might be something deeper for you to look into from even being in the receiving end, right? I know, for example, with me, when I got trolled or hate comments or whatever it was online when my videos went viral, there was something for me to look at in here, in my own self. For me, it wasn't about judgment or it wasn't about judgment or gossip for me. It was about, okay, where am I still allowing people to make me feel a kind of way about myself, right? Where are my boundaries not strong enough? So it was more about me really anchoring into my own truth and my own sovereignty around what I was saying and what I was doing, and knowing that and also the fixer in me, right? Knowing that I'm not here to people please and to fix everyone. And this is the challenge with being, a healer or being, in this industry. It's like, we naturally have a propensity to want to help people, right? And often that can come with people pleasing and overgiving. And, that was huge lessons in growth for me when I was faced with people saying not nice things about me that didn't even know me. I would try and either, at the very, very start of my journey, I would try and either change their mind. And I was like, Gillian, you cannot change these people's mind. These are not your people, right? And I had to get really tough with myself and be like, it's okay. Your truth, right? Your beliefs, your teachings are for a certain quadrant of people. The people that are out here trolling people online, they're not your people, and they never will be. And that's okay. You don't have to help everyone when people don't want to help themselves. And that was the reflection and the truth for me, right? So again, this is an invitation, really, honestly. It's just like, if you realize that there's unconscious patterns there, whether that's criticism, whether it's separation from yourself, whether you feel lost, whether you're kind of like not sure about your purpose, whether you're struggling with boundaries, whatever it is, then this is what I do. This is what I help people with, to understand who they are at soul level, to get them back on track with their own path, and to heal the root cause of the things that are still within their shadow, right? So you can book a healing session, or you can go on the coaching journey with me, to unravel those projections, like start to get back that deep clarity that your soul came here to bloody embody, right? Get ready to explore the shadows underneath the things that are showing up for you, that part of you that's still afraid to be seen, or craving control, or holding on to shame. Like, let's go there, because I am not afraid to go into the depths. One of my clients said recently, they're like, yeah, people, yeah, we really go deep. She's like, I've had other healers before, and she's like, we don't do any of the level of work that I do with you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not for everyone, but I know that change comes from not just skimming the surface. We have to go deep into the roots, right? Because you don't deserve to keep carrying that weight. You don't deserve to keep carrying that energy. You deserve to be clear, feel whole, feel connected back to who the fuck you really are. And that is, my friend, that is love, that is God, that is source, whatever you want to call it. Like, that is who you really are. A loving soul underneath the ego, the trauma, the limiting beliefs, the fears, like, that you've been holding on for lifetimes, that have been passed down your generational line, or that you've created since childhood, right? And this is where my private spiritual coaching, The Path, goes deep into really unraveling all that you are, your gifts, and again, getting you back on track with your soul's purpose and your true potential for your own evolution, whatever path it is that you choose, right? So all the details of how you can work with me are in the show notes below, and you can hit me up on Instagram at the Gillian Kane Connection. I always answer all of my DMs. So yes, there's lots of ways to work with me, connect with me, chat to me, whatever you want to do. If this resonated with you, then please leave a comment or a review. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes just like this. So until next time, I just want you to remember that it's a mirror. The question is, are you looking in it? So I'm just sending you so much love. Like I said, until next time, big kisses. Love you all.